Another fun session of coffee chats. I'll be honest, it's Monday. Justin and I are both still getting semi-caffeinated through the day, so no better time to kick a week off than have just an awesome coffee chat. First and most importantly, my dear friend right here in Atlanta, Georgia, Justin Gavette. Great to have you again on another lovely WizOps episode, Sonar episode. We do enough of these things that we have so many things going on. But before anything else, Justin, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little about who you are, what company you're with, and what you do.
Thanks, Brad, for having me. I always enjoy spending time with you, um, and the other WizOps people, Sonar people, of course. My name is Justin Gavette. I am a revenue operations architect at Operatus. So I am in the consulting space, and basically I manage projects for customers that work with their entire go-to-market stack, which is why it's not just a Salesforce architect. I work with all of their tools, and I manage a couple of people that work on these projects with me.
I love it. I'd be remiss not to say a couple of things. One, we actually just got done doing a great project with you and the whole Operatus team, which we'll get into here in a second when it comes to really what you do, what specializes or what specialties you have. Uh, but just as important to that, if I get my numbers correct, I believe you were customer number two of Sonar,
Mhm.
and then very quickly turned into customer number four.
Yeah.
And then somewhere through the rest of the journey, I think it was like number 18 or so. And then obviously now with Operatus being a partner and a customer, I don't even know what number that is anymore, but you've been around the world with us a couple of times from the Sonar front, which obviously can't thank you enough for the support and continue to be a great customer. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, different capacities. It was in the user space, managing internal orgs, and then once I went to consulting, then I mean, come on, be honest, Brad, you've been following me.
Oh, I
Like
have.
that's what it is. So
That's exactly it. And everybody knows this. If you're close enough friends with me, once you are close enough friend, I never let you go. So here we are.
yeah,
I love it. All right. Well, as we said, this is Coffee Chats. Before we get too far into the fun work stuff, let's see a little bit of what coffee mug you're drinking out of. I'm borrowing my wife's today, which is our pug mug, and oh my God, that is a Golden Girls mug.
yeah.
Do I dare ask when you got this, how you got this? Was it a gift? Did you find it somewhere? And keep calm and eat cheesecake. Of course. Why not? How did you end up with this mug?
So a friend of mine got this for me for, I think, my birthday, or just like a random present, just because, little known fact about me, or maybe a very widely known fact about me. Golden Girls is like the most amazing show on the planet, number one. And number two, like I pretty much, like, I have to have like background noise when I go to sleep. So I have pretty much been um, watching Golden Girls every night for the past like 14 years.
I was gonna say for how
Like
many
every
years?
single night, 14 years.
Oh, I love
And I
that.
just start over, like I'll watch the entire series all the way through and then start right back over.
I bet at this point you're probably reciting half of the episodes that
Oh,
you see because
absolutely.
you know all the words to them anyway. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And it's one of the funniest shows that's ever been made. So,
I couldn't agree with you more on that. Classic show. I could almost say I'm close to you in that same vein. This is why I'm such a big Game of Thrones nerd because I go to sleep watching it most nights. And so I feel not 14 years of it. Obviously, I haven't been around that long, but I'm with you on that because when
yeah,
you find a good show that you're into, great way to go to sleep. So,
absolutely.
all right, cruising through again, the whole premise of Coffee Chat for if anybody's joining us for the first time, man, we're just getting up and moving. It's a Monday morning. Like I said, we want some coffee. We want to kind of really understand a little bit more about ops and the folks that make our community great. So, Justin, if you had to describe your ops superpower, what would it be?
Oh gosh, that's a very good question. I think ops superpower. I think understanding or translating business needs into actionable systems.
We're all in the Salesforce ecosystem. We walk into a bunch of different Salesforce systems and environments all the time. Describe the last org you walked into in 3 words.
Okay, so I'm gonna go a little off topic, and I'm not gonna do a work org because I just don't want to
Of
have
course.
people be like, is he talking about us? But I'm big in the volunteer space. I implement Salesforce for nonprofits, and I would probably say the most recent one in 3 words would be, "Holy cow, what?"
All right.
If I were to keep myself from cursing. So.
Yep. I have to ask then, elaborate, which kind of goes into the next question of, the last big project that you worked on. I'm curious, why would you describe that org as holy cow, what?
So even though I'm describing a nonprofit space, it really, really translates into even, for profit and pretty much any Salesforce org where having the correct resources doing any sort of implementation is very, very important. And especially for my love with not for nonprofits, I want to make sure if they do choose to go with Salesforce that it's being done the correct way. This one was not. And it pretty much it probably would have been easier if we would have started from a fresh org and re-implemented everything because I've been volunteering with them for about a year and a half now, re-implement, basically having to take everything back down to the studs and rebuild everything in a better way, just because of the way that prior things were being done.
Sure. I feel like that's almost a chasm that we all sort of cross at times with an org that we either inherit or one that we have to do some project work on. Because for the most part, we typically always say like it's going to be a bigger pain to really restart all of it. You don't really realize how much institutional knowledge and configuration you've already put into the current org. But there
Mhm.
are also times where you absolutely want to be like, okay, this is enough of a dumpster fire over here. Let's just go ahead and put that fire out and start a whole new one instead.
Yeah, I mean, and specifically with this one, I actually said, "Hey, guys, like, not to make you spend money, um, because nonprofits don't have typically don't have a ton of money
Or
to spend." I actually suggested that we get Sonar just because I needed to understand everything that was happening that was put into place previously because it was just a freaking mess.
yeah, they can be that way. All right, now
Yeah.
I'm going to really switch gears on you now that the caffeine's kind of kicking in with it. Speaking of Sonar, obviously you have used it internally as an internal owner of the product, externally from a consulting angle. If you had to think about it, what do you see as some of the most like valuable Sonar features, or some of the ones that have gotten you most excited? Could be a most recent feature, or it could be something that we've been doing for years. But what do you think about when you think of what brings the most value to you, whether it be internally ownership or external consulting?
That's a great question. And I think that, I mean, ultimately, I really love the data dictionary function. That's been a really good add. But I mean, honestly, just being able to see, I mean, especially with like standard fields where you're not able to use the where is this used, which hopefully they fix. Um, but like being able to see everything that it touches. So just Sonar in general, even or specifically on standard fields, because it's like, come on, like what is going on with, when I'm trying to troubleshoot a record or, hey, what could have caused XYZ to happen? Being able to just get that full view of everything that's happening with the org has been
Totally.
extremely helpful.
Yeah, it's funny. We have this conversation often internally and externally with customers. We push that as our entire impact analysis side of the application. And while we continue to build new things, you mentioned data dictionary. Now we have Pulse, which is doing the
Mhm.
integration monitoring piece. We still can't say it enough, and you just validated it. That impact analysis side is still so core to what we do. It has a Salesforce admin, consultant, architect, just being this ecosystem. We kind of all know the old phrase, you can go make a change. Typically takes about 7 clicks and 30 seconds to make a change in Salesforce. But man, if you don't know what's upstream, downstream, what could be dependent on that change, you could be spending the next 30 minutes, 30 hours, 30 days fixing something. And that's the biggest thing that we want to prevent through all of that.
Absolutely. And I mean, just to piggyback off of that, I mean, especially if you're an admin needing to understand what code could also be referencing something is a huge win because it's been super helpful for me. I'm not a coder. I can read code, but it helps. It's definitely something that I've not been able to, I would not have been able to, do my job appropriately in a lot of instances if I wouldn't have been, customer 2, 4, 18,
18, I can't remember all the
whichever ones they've been.
For sure. Well, you bring up a good point, and I'll validate that in the same breath. I am not a coder or developer either. Like I can muscle my way through any sort of flow or process builder or anything, even like close to validation rules, right? But I'm not your traditional Apex developer. And I think that's always been just a gap in the Salesforce ecosystem that is really hard for what you call some declarative developers or some, the admin side more like we are, that's not truly dev, and how to work really, really well with some of the development team. And you are speaking different languages and you're taking different routes to make action in Salesforce. But to be able to use a system or a tool like Sonar so that you can still see what those dependencies look like, better said, if I am going to step on the toes of a developer who's got something fully written in Apex, I at least know what that impact could look like. And I can talk to them and collaborate through it, which I think is what you're also saying.
Absolutely. 100%.
I love it. So, well, we talked about just some of the overall pieces of Sonar, but I have to ask, in a pretty recent project, could be the nonprofit one, could be the one that you worked on with us. Was there a time that you used Sonar to fully identify a blind spot? And how did that make that project even easier for you to continue on and progressing?
That's a great question. And so I think back to I can't remember which company I was at, but it was when I was consulting, where the client had they had come in, they thankfully had already had Sonar, so they were already a Sonar client, but they really didn't understand the full functionality of it just because of like their internal resources had changed over. And so being able to really come in fresh to a client and be able to say, oh, okay, great, you already have Sonar. Let's pull it up. Let me walk you through it, and let's take some of these pain points that we discussed on your kickoff or whatnot. Let me show you where we can figure this out at. And it increased the utilization for the client on the Sonar product, but it also helped them take a step back and think about, again, holistically at their system, what was causing other things to happen. Because they had a lot of cases of runaway automation where they really couldn't pinpoint what that stream of automation was. And we were able to diagnose it very, very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things that people realize too, once they get maybe a layer deeper into it or just really start to utilize it with a partner as well, showing them how to do it is, I mean, you've got this big bowl of spaghetti of things that are just intertwined and you don't really know if even you coming in, with your cape flying and as you're coming in as a superhero you are to fix things, you still might not know fully what you might impact downstream if something's tied together. So just be able to have that unique and shared lens to look through of what's changing, what's not, how can we not step on each other's toes. Ultimately, it makes the project go faster and hopefully with less errors for sure.
Well, and also, I mean, ultimately, my job is to get them better acquainted with their system, all of their systems, so that ultimately they won't need me down the road.
And that's a good consultant right there to make sure that, look, I'm setting my customer up for success, not as a dependency of me that I've always got to be in the room or I've always got to be on call to be able to make sure something doesn't break. That's a good consultant right there.
Thank you, sir.
Of course. I know we're getting close on time. I've got two final questions for you. We're going to switch over to WizOps. You have been what I would call an OG in the WizOps space with us. I mean, I would I had to guess, out of the 8,000 plus members, you were certainly in the first 10, maybe 15 overall when we were all getting this thing started. You kind of take a big step back and you look through all the years that we've been in the same community together. I have to ask, what do you think one of the biggest advantages to being in a community like WizOps has provided you?
That's a great question. And it's actually been, oh gosh. Yeah, I think I was definitely within the first couple of dozen, but it definitely helped me along my entire career. Um, Talking like I'm an old guy now, but like it's 5 years
Cheers.
now.
We are.
Um, that it's just always great to have another set of eyes, more brains to like kind of you know bounce things off of people, of just saying, hey, am I thinking about this correctly? Like, am I missing something? And it's been great to kind of be, because I'm always about mentoring, teaching people, learning things. And so very early on in my career, when I first joined WizOps, I was asking a lot of questions. And now it's more of, I've been able to answer a lot of questions. So it's been a great place to grow my, the way that I communicate with people, um, you know, and being able to mentor people or answer questions, things of that nature.
Yeah. So you made this like very unique, I don't really call it transition, but more of just a journey that you've been on. Starting early with it, you were one of the ones asking a ton of questions, as was I, as I still am also. But you kind of moved into a little bit more of the mentorship leadership side of things. You become that trusted resource when people jump into WizOps and they've got a big flow question. I know we've talked a lot about flows now and in the past. You get to jump in and be like, oh yeah, I know how to help you with that. You want to grab 5 minutes on Zoom, or hey, here's a quick article that I found that troubleshoots that. You've become that trusted advisor, which is great. It's what we want in the community, right?
Well, I definitely try. I need to, you know, get back in there and not just troll people. Certain people. I don't troll everyone, just certain people like you.
Some people like me
But
and Ben Fuller need
yes,
it.
absolutely.
love
Absolutely.
it. I love it. Well, I don't want to keep you too long. I know you got a busy day ahead of you, but I do have to ask. We're all in this RevOps world together. You and I both, even knowing each other over the years, have watched it transition and grow and evolve and move around. I have to ask you, we're in August of 2024. We'll mark the tape now. What do you think the next big thing, and I'm going to air quote this, in the future of RevOps or in the future of the Salesforce ecosystem, since we're so tightly, wound together? What do you think the next big thing is that we're about to experience?
Oh, God. Of course you asked that question. Honestly, I think that it's, if I had to wager a guess, I think data. Like, so there's data cloud, right? But data analysis. So, right. So like how are we going to use all of this data that is coming in, no matter how it's coming in? And how is that analyzed in order to help our forecasting, help our commissions become better, our pipelines, everything, from lead all the way over into, invoicing the business. How is the data going to um, affect these downstream processes? Because I think that there's been a lot of push for AI, there's been a lot of push for data cloud, but okay, great. What are we going to do with all that information? So people really need to start thinking, okay, I'm pulling in all of this information. And obviously, I hope people that are doing data cloud or, AI and all of that, they have a good understanding or a good plan for what they're ultimately trying to do. But with anything, not just with data or whatever, what I try to understand when I start with a new product or project or whatever is, what is my end goal? What does the finish line look like for all of these different things? And that's what I work towards. And I utilize the different tools. So if people aren't, that's why I think so much about no matter what the newest gimmick is or whatever, people need to continually think about their data, how they're going to use it, and how is that going to affect where they finish.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. It's been an interesting paradigm shift with data in general, because you can remember back in our days, gosh, we do sound old saying that. But there was times that we didn't have enough data, and so we had to make inferences, and you can quickly relay this to a forecasting call or just how we even think about our business. And RevOps was always going to be at the epicenter of that. Hey, what was our trend last quarter? What do we think we can predict this quarter? Whether it be MQLs, SQLs, close one pipeline renewals, we were all responsible for that. And I do feel like over the years, especially recently, we shifted from this, we don't have nearly enough data, so we do have to make, some pointed inferences, to holy cow, we have more data than we know what to do with now. And now we can layer on a couple of different learning models and AI, like you said, to be able to make our jobs easier. I agree with you. I think that trend of harnessing your data is going to not go away. If anything, it might get a little tougher as we keep compounding how we can look at that data. But I think the underlying piece of that might be, do we have good quality data? Because there's no shortage of it now. We've got more data points than we know what to do with. But are we looking at the right type of data? And is it going to tell us the right story? Is it high quality data? I feel like that's going to be around that corner.
Right. And I just came up with this term in my head, but do you have data fatigue? Right.
Ooh, I
So
like that.
like you've got 12 different sources of data coming into your system. What are you using it for? What is the ultimate purpose of this data?
Yeah.
And is it providing actual assistance in what you're using it for, or is it just giving you this false sense of,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, we talk about like vanity metrics all the time, right?
yeah,
And are we just getting a piece of data that we are forcing it to tell the same story that we want? Or are we actually looking at that almost agnostically? Yes, that's actually valuable data. I think data fatigue, mark the tape now. We'll go ahead and get the copyright or the trademark for data fatigue, but I think you're spot on with that. And I think the other piece of that, not to throw too much more into it, who owns that data? Because
absolutely.
we've got a ton of access to it, but is it the marketing team that owns it? Because for better or for worse, you could say it's about sales, marketing, success, finance. We all have our own bias towards the data that we own. And now that we have so much of it, are we in a place where we can look at all this data together and understand it through the same lens and not have it serve one department well and not serve the other department as well? So,
Right. Because I mean, ultimately, KPIs can be different, but if you're using the same data set, it should be seen relatively similarly across the board.
yeah.
And so if it's being viewed in different ways by different departments, then there's something wrong.
Couldn't agree more. Man, all right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Data fatigue. If you have a question about data fatigue, our guy Justin Gavette's got you covered. I know it's a Monday. I know we got a lot of stuff to do. Justin, show me that lovely mug again one more time. Give me some good Golden Girls. Cheers, my friend. Can't
Oops.
thank you enough for everything.
Oops.
We'll make sure that everybody knows how to get a hold of you after we get this out in the wild. And I expect a lot of new friend requests coming in. But Justin, can't thank you enough again. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. All right.
Appreciate it, Brad.